For most of our lives, globalization felt unstoppable. Goods, money, ideas, and people moved across borders faster than ever. A smartphone might be designed in California, assembled in China, with parts from Japan, rare metals from Africa, and software engineers coding from India. For decades, that system worked beautifully. It kept prices low, profits high, and billions of people were lifted out of poverty. The fall of the Soviet Union, China's entry into the World Trade Organization, and the spread of internet all created a single, connected global economy. The world seemed smaller, richer, and more peaceful. But today, that vision is fading. The signs are everywhere. Global trade as a share of world GDP has stopped growing for the first time in half a century. Supply chains that once stretched across continents are being shortened or broken entirely, and the trust that held the system together is disappearing. The idea that free trade automatically leads to peace and prosperity no longer feels true, not after the financial crisis, a pandemic, and a war that reset the global order. It all started with the 2008 financial crisis. When American banks collapsed, the shockwaves hit every country. People around the world realized how dependent they were on a fragile system built on debt and speculation. Then came China's rise, a country that used globalization to become an industrial superpower, but now wants to rewrite the rules in its favor. Western nations, once confident in their dominance, started to fear they were losing control. Trade wars and tariffs followed. The dream of a borderless economy began to crack. Then the COVID-19 pandemic struck. Overnight, borders closed, factories stopped, ships stood idle. Suddenly, the world's supply chain, once celebrated for efficiency, turned into a global chaos. Countries could not get masks, medicine, or even microchips. It was a wake-up call. Globalization had made us rich but also dangerously dependent. When China locked down, the world's factories went silent. When a single ship blocked the Suez Canal, billions of dollars in trade froze. The lesson was simple: efficiency isn't security. And then came 2022. Russia's invasion of Ukraine didn't just start a war, it weaponized the economy. Energy, food, and currency became tools of power. Europe realized how risky it was to rely on Russian gas. Sanctions cut Russia off from global markets, but they also split the world into two. China and India kept trading with Moscow while the West imposed bans. For the first time since the Cold War, economics and geopolitics became inseparable again. What's emerging now is a new map of global power, a world divided into two economic blocs. On one side stands the Western bloc, the United States, the European Union, Japan, South Korea, the UK, and Australia. These countries are trying to secure their supply chains, control advanced technologies like semiconductors and AI, and protect their economies from political rivals. Policies like the US CHIPS Act, for example, gives billions in subsidies to bring manufacturing back home. On the other hand, the China-led bloc is taking shape, including Russia, Iran, and much of the developing world. Through projects like Belt and Road Initiative, China is building infrastructure, financing trade, and expanding its influence across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The BRICS alliance, now expanded to include countries like Saudi Arabia and Egypt, aims to build an alternative to Western financial dominance, even discussing a new currency to rival the dollar. In between lies the global south, countries like India, Brazil, and Indonesia, who refuse to choose sides. They trade with both blocs, balancing economic opportunities with strategic independence. India, for instance, is deepening ties with the US in technology while buying cheap oil from Russia. These nations are becoming the swing states of the new global economy. But what does this mean for ordinary people? The age of cheap, abundant goods may be ending. When companies can't rely on smooth global trade, prices rise. Inflation becomes harder to control. Energy, food, and manufacturing costs increase as each bloc builds its own version of everything, its own factories, standards, and systems. The result is duplication instead of efficiency, competition instead of cooperation, and yet some countries might actually benefit. Nations rich in resources like energy or minerals suddenly have leverage again. Places like Saudi Arabia, Chile, and Indonesia are gaining power as the world scrambles for lithium, cobalt, and oil. Globalization isn't vanishing, it's splintering. The old world of one big connected economy is being replaced by multiple smaller systems, each centered on a political power. Instead of globalization, we are moving into the era of geoeconomics, where trade, technology, and politics are weapons in a global contest for influence. The US and China aren't just competing for market share, they are competing for control of the future. So is this the end of globalization? Not exactly. It's more like a transformation from a world built on cooperation to one built on competition. The internet is still global. Capital still moves fast, but trust is gone. And politics now decide where money flows. The next decade will define whether this fractured system brings stability through resilience or chaos through division. The truth is, globalization gave us the world we live in today, the device in our pockets, the food on our shelves, and jobs in our cities. Its decline will change all of that. The question we should be asking isn't just why globalization is ending, but what kind of world will replace it. Will it be fairer and more sustainable, or more divided and unstable than before?